Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
JP, Emma, Laura. Just before we kind of break into it, I want to hear your story and how you met these two. What's the first impression? Was it on a video? What do you?
Yeah, I feel like the first time that I would have come across the two of you, it was probably a combination of NZO and Shakedown, my first two competitions. Actually, the last Shakedown swing that was held was my first Shakedown swing. And I remember watching the two of you demo, and I remember watching the two of you dance an invitational, and just absolutely loved every bit of it. I think the New Zealand Australian bond is something really special as well. And I think, just absolutely inspirational for me was NZO and Shakedown, because that was the two competitions where I started as a novice dancer and had no idea what West Coast Swing was really when I first went to my first NZO. I kind of got pulled along by Rob and went and just saw all these amazing people dancing, and that was, for me, I kind of watched everyone and went, this is what I want to do, this is what I love. It was amazing. So both of you, I've always enjoyed watching your dancing, and I think it's the connection that you have, which is really lovely, and I can see it. And you're just both really lovely people inside and out. So that I've just gotten to know you guys over the years, and
all the feelings.
I think for me, it's just really warm memories of when I first started West Coast Swing and what really got me into dance, because I didn't really do much dance prior to this, so yeah.
My experience of meeting you guys. I remember JP coming through. It was a newcomer.
Yeah.
Australian Open.
The Australian Open. Yeah, I remember.
Benji Schwimmer was the headline act there.
Yeah.
Wait, as a 12-year-old?
Yeah, 12.
Yeah. First event, right?
No, not first. I mean, technically my first event was Boogie by the Bay.
Yes.
Before I ever started. But I'd done one Australian event before, which is Swing Station. That was my second West Coast comp.
Wait, so
but I don't think I competed at my first Swing Station.
I'm pretty sure I went and saw your swing points. You've done 2 newcomer competitions, didn't you? Scandal.
What was the
Within the WSC.
What was the second one?
I didn't realise you'd done all this homework. I'm interested.
Because I remember, so there's the Australian Open. What was the other one?
Oh, I can't remember. I didn't do that much homework. Were you at Australian Open too in Benji Schwimmer? Oh, my
Yeah,
goodness.
I think at that competition, it was definitely like almost a year, I want to say, where you had enough novice points to move out. You're like, I don't want to do this
that
yet.
was actually 2 prongs. So when I first started dancing, I actually didn't compete for a really long time, because the anxiety around actually competing and putting myself out there was too much for me to deal with. And I just remember sitting at a swing station one year, and I was sitting in the middle of the crowd watching everybody dance, and they were having a really nice time, and they were getting to know each other and having fun, and I thought, damn, I'm missing an opportunity to have dances and meet these people when I'm just sitting in the crowd watching instead. And so after that, I'd say I probably didn't compete for a year, and after that I was like, okay, I'm just going to have to deal with the nerves and the anxiety around that and actually just put myself out there, because I'm losing out by sitting in the crowd instead. And then JP's right. I did wait. I did have enough novice points to move up until I met the threshold that I had to go.
Yeah. One of the few people I've met that's actually triggered the force to move up from a division. Where I was like, yep, by 15 points, I'm gone.
I guess this flows really nicely into the next little bit. Was asking you about West Coast Swing and competition. Tell us about when you guys came through the ranks and when you the nerves you had, because I'm sure everyone watching this and listening to this have gone to an event and done really shite at an event. No, because they're amazing social dancers, and then you get on the floor I don't know how to move my legs. And how did you tell us? You got any cool stories of when you started?
Well, I mean, I'd say that I'm definitely a competitive person. So unlike Emma, I was never like really waiting to compete. Besides my first event where I'd only been dancing for 3 months and I was 12. But once I did start competing, I was like, I'm competing because I want to win because I'm a very competitive person. And Zach in Australia as
Zach
well.
Skinner.
Yeah, Zach very quickly became like not a rival at the start. Nowadays, I'd say we've got a very friendly rivalry, but coming up, he was like in a couple of divisions above me, but he was the only other person in the time competing in Australia that was under the age of 18. So I was like, you know what, I'm comparing myself to him, like I need to do better, and he's a very good dancer. So I was very much like very competitive focused when I started. Definitely not so much now. But I do remember that there was a point where that like competitive drive started to have negative impacts on my dance, focusing too much on just the competitive outcome and like performing well in a competitive setting rather than like other good qualities of dancing and just being a nice human. And there's a particular
You're right. Yeah.
There's a particular event I remember that I just got roasted by so many people for. A swing escape. I can't remember.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but I think you're aware of the one that I'd be referring to, right? Yeah. So it was a very particular dance that just got referred to as the JP show for like the next 6 months. Because I didn't do a great job of balancing myself with my follow. Apologies to them if they ever see this. But yeah, that was probably like where my competition drive became like a downside, and I was like, oh, like this was not good. And so after that, I started to change like my competitive habits a bit. Like you can even see it in that newcomer dance that you mentioned. From that not the newcomer one, sorry. I did Novice Strictly at that same Australian Open, and I was like, pulling out these moves that I ripped off YouTube from Masson as like a 12-year-old kid with bad timing. But I hit the phrase change with one of them, and that was enough to get placed.
You got by with the cute factor though, right?
a lot of beaver flicks and a lot of Masson flicks.
Oh yes! Oh, if we can find a picture of the beaver throw. The beaver.
Yeah. But yeah, after that, I would like to think at least my dancing shifted a lot more from very much like I'm trying to be like the center of attention in this to letting my followers shine a bit more. And so that would, I think, be like the biggest shift in my competition was taking that. The other one that would come to mind is probably because most of the competitions that I've competed in are in the Southern Hemisphere, specifically Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore. Because traveling for us is a lot further and a lot more expensive, especially being so young. Like, not a lot of finance as a 16-year-old, traveling. So most of my competitions have been here. So when I did finish and like graduate high school and wanted to go on a gap year, I went overseas. And this is after I'd been, I'd made it to All-Star within Australia. But I've been competing only in Australia for a while, and it was very much like starting to become like big fish, little pond. And so getting to like travel overseas and like get hit with the reality check of like, there is some really, really talented dancers in the rest of the world, surprise, and kind of measure up. I mean, like measure's not a great word, but like compare myself in a competitive sense to these other dancers was another like kind of shock to the system. Like competing and not making finals because actually had to do a heat because heats for advanced and all-star within Australia are very uncommon just because we don't have the numbers. So having to go
straight to finals.
Yeah, straight to finals.
Combined advanced all-star.
Yeah, advanced all-star, straight to finals. Petitioned up. All sorts.
So getting to
reasonably petitioned up, not unofficially.
So getting up to that level and then like actually having to do a heat and like not making finals and all-star, I was like, all right, like this was like a more positive outcome from a competition where I didn't do well. Because I was like, okay, like I still have all this stuff to work on because at that time I started to feel like I was plateauing within Australia. So it was really good to like travel and get that exposure to get like kind of kickstart that drive.
What about you, Emma? You coming through the ranks? Were you a like competitive sassy girl?
Absolutely not.
Oh, get off me!
No, absolutely not. I'm the polar opposite to JP in this sense. I'm not like competitive at all, actually, and I feel like it had the opposite bad effect on me, right? Because without that drive, I've kind of like historically let the negative self-talk kind of overrun my thoughts. So I have always gotten ridiculously nervous through competition and kind of talked myself out of it before I've even gotten on the floor. And I think like there's been so many times, and poor JP's had to deal with this so many times, where I've come off the floor, like competition or demo or whatever, and I've just gone back to my room and just cried because I haven't like met my own random unreasonable expectations of what I'm meant to be doing. And then JP's very kindly comforted me. But I think in experiencing that, I've kind of also realized that like the self-betrayal of not emotionally showing up for myself in the competition and not giving myself an opportunity to enjoy it and experience it in itself is actually worse than not dancing well. Right? Like looking back, and there's been times where I've come off the floor, bawled my eyes out, apologized to my partner, and then we've come first. And I'm like, oh, like my experience of this.
The standard response to winning a competition. Oh.
Why not?
Well, like my experience of this doesn't actually match reality. And so, and then also like if I'm being mean to myself, what does that say, or what does that communicate to other people about what I think about them? Right? But I never actually have like the negative feelings or perception of other people's dancing. So why do I have this different standard for myself? And actually kind of looking at it from that perspective has helped not completely eradicate the nerves, because I still get really nervous all the time, but it has lessened them, and I guess helped me like rechannel that maybe into more like excitement, or like harnessing that nervous energy into something more positive, because I know that showing up for myself emotionally is more important. Or like showing up for my partner in that moment and being present with them is more important than me like being negative and stressing myself out.
If I said the word perfectionist, how do you feel like you relate to that word?
Has my therapist called you?
I've done my research, but no. I've done my research, but no.
Yeah, where are you getting this information from?
So consciously no, but reflecting on my life and maybe like the expectations I put on myself, it would be unreasonable for me to say like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not like that at all.
Yeah.
So when you say that you show up, you're trying to show up emotionally for yourself, and then obviously that translates to your partner and to everyone else. What exactly are you doing differently? So what have you learned over the years, and what are you applying?
So I actually had a circumstance recently where I didn't emotionally show up for myself, which is kind of what made me realize that I had gotten better at over time at doing that, because then when I didn't do it, it like really had quite a serious impact on me. So recently danced with an amazing champion dancer in a spotlight. And they are one of the most accommodating, collaborative leaders that I have ever encountered. And the thought of me having to like dance my own dance and actually show up and present myself and kind of like be in the fullness of my own dance, and knowing that they would receive that not only willingly, but like in such a like happy, joyful, collaborative kind of way was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And so in the spotlight, I had already like basically mentally checked out, because I was so scared about like dancing and like showing people all of me. And so that dance is one of the most uncomfortable dances I have had in a really long time, not because of them, but because I had just psyched myself out before we even started, before the song had even come on. And watching it back, I can see like how uncomfortable I was and how much I hesitated and how much I then didn't contribute to the dance when I really could have, if I just like mentally had maybe like reframed this as like, as a follower, showing up as myself is actually helpful to my leader and helps like co-create with them. And maybe using that I don't know, like just reframing it in a different way so that I felt like I was contributing as opposed to taking away from the partnership.
Yeah.
And because they're such a beautiful leader, I didn't get to enjoy it. Like it could have been like an amazing experience where I really could have come off the floor and thought, wow, like that felt amazing just because of my mental headspace.
Yeah, I think that's so relatable to so many people though. And I think it's nice to hear that that is something that everyone struggled, or a lot of people struggle with, even at all levels, because I know myself, I've asked questions and talked to people because I've always found it hard to stand up as myself in front of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can stand up and in a play and act as somebody else without any problem in front of thousands of people, but I can't do that as myself as comfortably. You know, and I've heard different people sort of say, put your game face on, or like, who's your dance persona, or put that mask on. But for me, dance is such a personal thing as well. And the way I see it is I want to see that person's personality come through, and I that's what I love about dance, is that it's an art and it's expressing yourself through music and with your partner. And that is terrifying and it's so scary to do in front of everyone, because you are sharing an intimate piece of yourself with the world, which is absolutely terrifying if that's not something that you're used to doing. So yeah, to hear that that is something that you struggle with, and I guess some of the self-talk and what goes on behind the scenes is really interesting.
I think something that helped me a little bit with that, right, because it being terrifying and that anxiety around showing up kind of comes from our assumptions around how people will judge us. And I think a turning point for me, I mean, I haven't been able to get rid of this entirely, right? But a turning point for me was realizing like the people that I value are actually not judgmental. Like they will be the people that are warm and support you, and if you fall on your face, they will cheer so loud when you stand back up, and they won't care.
No.
And like prioritizing people who like you don't value and aren't supportive, and like prioritizing their judgment over these people that are just like good supportive humans is kind of like, that's what we're doing when we're like letting that fear override it, which is hard like to actually not do, but that the concept and reminding myself of that was helpful for kind of pushing through it as well.
I think I've had a similar thing where, you know, I've said to others, you know, when they've been really nervous, if, like students, for example, and you're having that conversation around, you know, they're really nervous about dancing, or even just socially dancing sometimes with pros. And it's a reminder that, you know, we never judge anyone else this harshly. Like, we never do. And we don't compare people to people when we're dancing with them. We just enjoy our social dance, or we see something interesting that someone does, whether it be novice or all-star level, and you appreciate what people bring to the dance floor, right? And if you're somebody that doesn't do that, well, I'm not interested anyway, you know, in some ways. It's like the people that I value and that I want to hang out with, and what makes the West Coast community, I think in NZ and Australia in particular, really awesome, is that we build each other up and we look up for each other and we admire what everyone brings to the floor. So it's very hard to, I guess, apply that same thought to yourself when you're a very harsh critic on yourself. That's something important. Obviously, you don't have the same kind of, I guess, anxiety around performance, or do you still feel some anxiety?
Depends what kind of performance. I still, when I'm competing with like a peer, or I don't feel like pressure, but in cases where it's like an invitational, where like a professional's invited me up, I feel expectations to, like there's expectations to meet, because these professionals, like they're here to put on a show, right? And to be able to do that, I need to be able to perform so that they can, like, you know, do their best. So situations like that, and similarly even with like pro-ams, if I am the pro in that situation, like I also feel that expectation, like there's a lot more expectation on me to do certain things, because rather than it being peers and like equals dancing together, it's that imbalance where there's more. And in that same case, I'm sure that in invitationals, the pros would feel the same way about me being like, oh, they've got to dance a certain way because they're dancing with someone else, rather than a peer. But I still feel that, especially I think more so now that like social media is such a big part of like advertising for these professionals, like they need to make sure they have a good dance so that they can post on social media so the next event director hires them, right? So I feel more expectation now than, because I've been invited to invitationals like a long time ago as well, like when I was younger, when social media wasn't as big of a presence within our dance, and I didn't feel that same level of stress then. So that's definitely more of a recent thing with the pros.
So for you, a lot of the nerves comes around the not letting your partner down, and particularly when there's an imbalance where they're potentially relying on you to either look good or to take care of them in a pro-am sort of situation. Yeah.
Guys, it's time to wound this all up. But
I do have a couple of icebreaker fun questions though that I just want to quickly ask.
really quickly, we've been giving the twirl. We've been given the twirl.
One question.
Okay.
One question. All right. If you had to describe your dancing as a spirit animal, what would you choose?
As a spirit animal?
Yeah, like what animal do you encompass when you go out on the dance floor? And I would also like to challenge you to next time that you do a spotlight, think about this animal when you go out there, okay?
You're gonna ruin this spotlight.
Hey, we're gonna have fun watching it.
I think it's gonna be like a koala, you know, like just chilling in the tree, just like very, very calm.
Aww.
You know, and then even if it's like crazy, I'm just kind of like, such a life.
And Emma's the drop bear. Killer mentality. Yeah.
So this is the thing, like, as soon as you said that, I started thinking about all these really random animals, even some I don't know what they're called. and then I'm like, oh my god, I should say honey badger, and then I'm like, wait, I don't dance like a honey badger.
No, it could be a
They're
soul.
terrifying, aggressive animals, even if they're very smart. And so then I'm like, okay, what do I actually dance like? And I feel like probably like a Labrador puppy is maybe actually more aligned with my actual dancing, even though it's not as hilarious as I would have liked.
Hey guys, thank you so much for being on our inaugural, our very first interview. So thank you very much, guys. West Coast Swing Chats.
Yay.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.